Hey, what's up, bookworms? We are back for another Talk About Nothing. And this time it's going to be Talk About Nothing some more because I've only had one other guest that's been on Talk About Nothing twice. Well, now I'm going to double that with Dr. Fantasy himself, Dr. Philip Chase, the published author of the Dan trilogy. Philip, how are you, my brother?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thank you so much for inviting me here. I am fresh back from a trip to Nepal, and I'm just at the point now where I'm sort of not over the jet lag. So,
Yeah.
so this is good. This is good timing for that.
So are you in that you need a vacation from your vacation feeling right now? Because I'm still there and I got back 2 weeks ago.
Well, after a nearly 24-hour flight, I
I
definitely
don't,
felt
man, I
like
couldn't.
that's a rugged thing to fly that far. So yeah, I need a couple days to just sort of feel human again, and that's how I'm feeling tonight. Feeling good,
Yeah,
feeling ready
I've
to
never
have a
really left
chat.
the continent, so I've never had to do the across the pond thing. So I don't know how I would fare in an airplane that long.
I will say that I used to fare better when I was a bit younger.
Uh,
So don't wait too long, Mike, to do
yeah,
it because
yeah. So I think I hit my expiration date, turned 45, and everything started breaking out. So let's go ahead and just talk about some of the greatest hits first. On your trip, did you get to read anything, or were you pretty much busy the whole time?
Well, I was catching up with you in the Rain Wilds Chronicles for one thing.
Nice. So,
Uh,
so
so
did you
I
finish? Did you finish this one?
I finished City of Dragons.
Yeah, I
I
finished
did.
it.
Yeah.
Not yesterday morning, the day before. I finished it the day
Yeah.
before. I will say I feel like that's the best of the three that I've read in Rainwell so far.
I think that's fair. I think that it was for me the best as well. I feel like I like the second one more than you did, but the
Yeah.
first did drag a fair bit for me, and that's not unusual with Hobb. I've found with the Realm of the Elderlings so far, the beginnings usually do go on a bit, and there's a lot of introducing you to the characters and the places that we're going to be going, and there's a lot of, and I've learned with Hobb to just appreciate that because it has payoff later on. I trust that this time I spend getting to know these people, maybe it's not the most exciting part of the whole thing, but I've learned to trust Hobb and say, okay, she's getting me invested into the characters. It's going to pay off down the line, and it always has in the past. So I'm hoping that's going to be the case when we get to what is it? The fourth one's called Blood of Dragons, I think.
Blood
Blood of
of
Dragons.
Dragons. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So when we get there, maybe that will have the payoff I'm hoping for. But I did enjoy the second a little more than the first, and I really did enjoy the third.
I
So
think with
yeah,
me it's just I don't really like Tamara. I don't really like Tats. I don't really like Rascal. I don't like any of their drama really, and that's unusual for me with Ha because
yeah,
usually
yeah,
I love not just the characters, but like their interactions, especially when they're damaged. Like that's what I loved about Live Ship so much was just like this is like real family
yeah.
drama. This is stuff that family fights about. It was so believable. And this one, I'm just like, I don't care about the CW drama at all. And I was like, and somehow you maybe not really like these dragons either, especially Centaura. What a dick! Centaura's just a dick, man. It's
She's
like
got a bit
I
of an
mean,
ego there, a little bit
yeah,
of an
I'm just
ego.
like, oh god. I was like, I'm like stretching for Tentaglia and stuff right now. I'm like, geez, and even Icefire. I'm like, okay, this is I like them better than this now. So I'm feeling like that old man shaking fist at cloud. I don't like all these young kids. I don't know. It feels like it's just kind of but I think that
Yeah,
book
is it?
three did some not really spoiler, guys. Don't worry. This is out of context. This isn't gonna make it too, but like the memory stone stuff was awesome. That's the kind of stuff I love
That's
when Hob
cool.
does that
Yeah.
getting into the history of this world and stuff. That's stuff that she does that I love, and that part was really damn good.
Yeah, I agree. I really do love what Robin Hobb seems to be doing with the magic in Realm of the Elderlings. Each of the series, we get more and more insight into how it all works and how she's bringing these seemingly not so connected things more and more together. And that's an aspect of it that I'm really enjoying in the Raid
Mm.
Wild Chronicles, because I feel like, okay, yeah, now I'm understanding some of the stuff that you can go all the way back to the first trilogy, really, the
Mm.
Farseer trilogy, and realize, oh, okay, that's why this was that way. So that I love. I agree with you about the teenage drama. I mean, put a bunch of teenagers on an extended camping trip, and what are you
Oh
going to
yeah, I'm
get?
not saying it's not realistic. Just saying I might be aged out, because I got Jared here calling us the elder statesman of BookTube. Yeah, maybe there is
Yeah.
a little bit of that, but I like what Clayton says here. Live Ships is adult family drama. Rain Wilds is high school melodrama. So yeah, maybe if I
Fair
read these
enough.
when I was younger, I probably would be resonating with these a little bit more. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
I will say too that I had a couple, these are totally non-spoiler issues. One, I don't know if you noticed this, Mike, but there we go, Jared. We are being labeled the elder statesman of fantasy
that's it.
booktube.
That's it.
We'll take it. We got a
Trying to
little
raise
bit of,
the average age here. Yeah.
we earned it here. We earned it. But I will say I don't think I noticed this in the previous trilogies in Realm of the Elderlings, but I feel like with Rain Wilds, we get a lot of two things that I understand they're techniques that can be used and that are useful at times, but I feel like they're both overdone. One is that we're continuously reminded of stuff that already happened.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know that's there, maybe publisher pressure, because the books weren't released right one after another, right? So when people were originally reading them, there was some space in between the releases. So that's a thing that I think publishers sometimes try to get writers to do, which is to remind people what happened in the previous books. I feel like it's overdone a little bit in the Rain Wilds Chronicles, where I'm like, yeah, I already know this. Can we move on with the story? You're reminding me of stuff that I already remember. And the other thing is there's a lot of flashback. I feel like you're in the middle of something happening, and then you get the had part where we're in the middle of a scene, and then there's this explanation that happened before the scene, and you're pulled out of the scene. And for me, that's a momentum killer. So I feel like I didn't notice that so much with the previous books. Did you feel like that?
I agree, and I think that's the thing when Hobbs already slow burn fantasy, and you're going to find a way to grind that even slower. It's like, I mean, it's one of those things. Like, look, I didn't like book 1 and 2 very much at all. I won't lie, probably my least favorite without a doubt in the series so far. But I'm saying it's not the eye cancer that everybody made me believe it was before I started. But I also think maybe that's like the Crossroads of Twilight thing, where people set my expectations so damn low that I had nowhere to go but up with it. But I'll say, look, if this is the worst that this series has to offer, it's still a pretty damn good series, right?
Exactly. I would even say that the 3 books I've read in the Rain Wilds Chronicles are better for me than most of the fantasy that I read. I mean, it's just that Robin Hobb is that talented where, like you say, her worst is going to be still pretty darn good. So, and I've actually enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. I like some of the characters. I do have some affection for some of the characters. There've been some brilliant moments, some revelations. I would say to anyone who's like hesitant about Rain Wilds, I don't think you need to be too worried about it. It's still good reading, in my opinion.
Yeah, and book 3 is really short, at least for a Robin Hobb book. So, hey, I'm getting some questions here. I got a published author on here. They want to know some stuff here.
All right.
First, how's the book release been going? You been having a good time with it? How's the book touring?
I mean, I can't tell you how meaningful it is to get to a point where the story's out there and people like PL Stewart is there in the chat, Drowned Kingdom Saga. He did these fantastic reviews. I mean, he's a great writer himself, by the way. I just read his first book.
Yeah, I know. I'm the only one PL hasn't sent books to. I'm just putting that out there, PL. The heck?
Okay. There we go. We're going to fix that fast. But yeah, I mean, I loved it. And the fact is, it was so meaningful to have PL and thank you, Frank. That's awesome to hear. I love hearing from people. I really love hearing from readers who will just, even if it's, this part I really enjoyed a lot, or an insightful long review like PL has done. He did one on his channel, but also he did a written review. And it's like the story comes alive. I've had this thing that has been more or less a private thing for, if in my case, 18 plus years. And to have people reading it, reacting to it, some of them saying they enjoy it. Thank you, Tanner. So yeah, I mean, it's just, Wow, I can't describe the feeling. It's really fantastic. So and I'm not a big numbers guy, but numbers wise, I feel like it's doing really well.
Yeah,
And so
great.
I'm happy. So yeah, I'm just very grateful to everybody who has picked up the book. And there's Matt. Thank you, Matt. Matt has been wonderful.
And is Day
Uh,
Raven just a badass name or what? That just sounds awesome. That's such a great name.
I
Such a
I
great name.
stole the name from Beowulf
Yeah.
and thinking, hey, this is a name that really deserves more than what it got, because Day Raven in Beowulf is just some random dude that Beowulf kills. It's a
Right.
one
Right.
line mention. That's it. I was like, that's just not right. So
Yeah.
I gotta
You
take
can't
that
have
name and do
an
something.
epic name like that and just be a one-off. Come on. All right.
Yeah.
Well, here's a couple of actual specific questions. I think this one's interesting. He wants to know if there's a way to cut out the middleman. He doesn't want to give Amazon their cut. He wants to know if he can just take them straight through you somehow, or someone you recommend buying it from instead of Amazon.
Yeah, you can. There are lots of places that are carrying the books. Other big stores like Barnes and Noble, you can all, Walmart I've seen is selling it. Although for some reason Walmart is charging more for it.
Really, dude? If I saw
Yeah.
my book at Walmart, I'd be taking every picture imaginable. That
Well,
feels
it's
more
not in
like
the
making it and seeing it
physical.
at Barnes and Noble.
It's not in the physical store, but I guess you can order it online
Oh,
from
okay. All right.
Walmart.
No, I'd be like, click, click if I saw a book at a Walmart.
There are independent booksellers like Silverstones. Silverstones is a bookstore that specializes in self-published fantasy, and so they're a great place to support. Just you can find their website. It's silverstones.com, I believe, and they are carrying the trilogy, and they're asking the same price, at least beginning price. Amazon has the books on sale a lot. I've noticed that recently. Prophet of Edan was 26% off or something like that on Amazon.
Do you
But
get
if you
any
don't,
say? Do you get any say when they put them on Kindle Unlimited? Is that up to you at all?
oh,
Does it?
I have to decide to put it on Kindle Unlimited. Every single self-published author I've ever talked to, including Ryan Cahill, has said you need to do Kindle Unlimited
Yeah.
because that's a really important revenue stream.
Oh yeah, that's the master right there. Give away your first book for free, and then everybody's just addicted, and they got to know more. Yeah, that's the way I think.
Yeah. I mean, that's a guy who's really got it together. I think he could probably write a book about how to self-publish. And he was very, very, very kind when I was initially talking about publishing. He reached out to me and said, "Hey, if no, pressure, but if you'd like to sit down with me for a bit," and and he was so nice and just sharing his
he's
wisdom.
awesome. Me and him talk like at least once a week about shit. He's great. He's a really
Yeah.
awesome guy.
Yeah, it
And
seems
the
like
bonus is his books are awesome, which I'm going to pressure you to read here in a minute.
Oh,
but
you don't have to pressure me. I'm gonna read them for sure.
A couple more of these self-pub questions here. Did you write all three books at once, and are you released? Yeah, he is releasing them close together. Did you write all three of them together though before you even decided to do any of this? So you were just in the proofreading stage?
I could give you the long version of that or the short version.
Hey, just talk about nothing. You can go as long as you want. The floor is yours.
So like I said, I've been working on these books for more than 18 years. And so I wrote what's now books 1 and 2 as initially it was one book. And that was back, I started in 2004. And then by 2007, I had finished that one book, which is now books 1 and 2. And a few years later, kind of around 2012, I finally got an agent. And the agent said, "This is not one book, this is 2 books." And so I said, okay. And I split it in 2. I added chapters. Actually, a lot of the early chapters in Prophet of Edan, I wrote later. And then made that the earlier part of, I initially had a 1-year gap that kind of got filled. So anyway, yeah, I turned that into 2 books. And then I realized that I really wanted a part 3. And I always had that sort of in mind as well. So I wrote that a little bit later. And yeah, that was just a process of over many, many years. And I was going to go, I got the agent, I was going to go the traditional route if I could. But we quickly realized when everything was ready that it wasn't going to happen. You know, it's just traditional publishing is a bit of a mess right now, frankly. And what I'm writing as a more or less blend of classical and modern fantasy isn't what a lot of publishers are looking for right now in fantasy. So, you know, I had a good conversation with the agent and said, yeah, let's try the self-publishing route. And that's probably your best bet. And he was a great guy. He helped me a lot to improve the books. So yeah, over that long period, all of that happened. And then I decided, yeah, I'm going to self-publish. And not only am I going to self-publish, but since I have control, I have creative freedom, I have the control over the timeline, I figured what would be most satisfying to potential readers. You know, nobody likes waiting a year or 11 years or whatever for the next book in a series. So I thought, let's give them all 3 books in 1 year. And that was what I went with. So, you know, I release every 3 months. So, yeah.
See, everybody just thought you were like Brandon Sanderson. You're just pumping these books out.
No, I'm the opposite of Brandon Sanderson, actually. I'm an idiot who took 18 years to write. Actually, I have a standalone sequel that's all written as well. I have a draft. And I want to work with AP Canavan again, who's been my developmental editor for the trilogy. Fantastic. Just what a professional, what a great pair of eyes to have on your story. And so he's helped me to improve the trilogy as well. So I'd like to show him this standalone sequel that I have written. It's called While Darkness Gathers. And I'd like to put that out in 2024. So I have that all ready to go. And then I got to start writing fresh. So we'll see how fast I can write after that. But yeah.
Jeremy wants to know how you'd feel about an author writing a satire called The Prophet of Electric Dan at some point. Hey, I feel like it's like some celebrities say, the moment that I was on South Park, I knew that I had made it, you know? So I feel
exactly.
Like if you're getting parodied, yeah, you're doing something okay, I think.
Oh, if somebody were to write that parody, man, I would be like, I'm big time now, you know, never mind with sales numbers, you know, if you've got a parody, you've made it. So yeah, right. That'd be awesome.
So, hey, can I talk to you about this for a second?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, look, we've got a couple hours. We can talk about this.
Look how far I've gotten. Wow, you know, it's like it's weird. You could be 200 pages in, you feel like you just cracked the surface, basically. I mean, look, what a shock. The prologue made no sense. Not a shocker. I mean, do they ever? I mean, maybe for you, but really, I think that what really surprised me, and again, guys, out of context, these aren't going to mean anything. Don't be like, oh, God, spoilers. I was excited to see like some bridge burners again. That's really, really cool. So I liked that. I don't know how well you remember specifically this book. I know you did just reread them all not that long ago, but I think Picker was always a bridge burner that I thought didn't really get enough screen time. It seems like she's finally getting that. So I like that attempted assassination of like all these old bridge burners. That storyline is really good. Everything else is kind of flying over my head as per usual, and I don't like the Krupp is back. So there we go. That's how I feel about it.
You're not a member of the Krupp fan club, Mike.
I am not except him being called I don't know how many times Mr. Erickson, a wonderful writer. How many times can he just explain to me that this is a round man? I'm not really sure. He is a nice round man who loves his snacks. You know, so.
He does like his pastries. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, but okay. So, Toll the Hounds. It is a favorite of many fans of the series, and it is also a least favorite of many fans of the series.
I've seen both. I think Alan can't stand it.
I mean, I think it's a bit of a running joke. Alan's feelings about Toll the Hounds, but
keep going, Jared. Keep going. You're only on book 2. Keep going.
See, Jared's going to be in the Krupp fan club.
Probably. Probably he likes Blood Meridian, so there's his problem. You know.
There you go. I heard that little chat.
Okay, look, I mean, a lot of that stuff I'm really into. Look, I was been waiting for it to get back to Animander Rake and stuff, but like the Dragnapur stuff over my head. I'm like, what is going on? What is the burden? I don't know what any of this stuff is. So it's out there, man.
So I don't know what you're going to experience by the end of it, but I think a lot of that stuff, when it clicks, you'll be like, whoa. This is really
I mean,
cool.
It's always like that with a Malazan book. I'll be like, this is frustrating. I don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, and then I get it. So I can see why people say it's a series that was made to be reread. I don't know who's ever
Yeah.
got that much time to reread these things, but yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, you do get rewarded by rereads for sure, but I would also say that you get a lot out of even the first read. And to me, Toll the Hounds is one of the. And I don't want to make it sound like it's just boring, highfalutin philosophy and all that.
There's some navel gazing going on there, you
Yeah,
think?
of course, there's some of that. But look, but Erickson does everything. I mean, if you want epic battles, if you want cool sword fights, he gives it to you. But he also does have a lot of thematic work in there, and that's where he starts from. And the fact of the matter is, I have never read a more profound and moving exploration of how grief and love are so intertwined as I have experienced in Toll Hounds. This is a book that is fundamentally about grief and love and how the two things are so intertwined and you cannot separate them. You cannot have love without grief. It's like you can't have life without death. It's just part of the deal. And this is what Toll the Hounds is about to me. It is no accident as well that Stephen Erickson wrote it after he lost his father. And it is very much, I think, a reflection in some ways on that loss as well. So it's a very personal book, I think, as well for Stephen Erickson in some ways. But for me, yeah, it's definitely not the most action-packed of the Malazan books. It might be the least action-packed, but it is one of the books that left me in awe of Erickson's writing and his ability to explore human experience. And that's, for me, what makes this series in general just so special, the greatest literary journey of my life. But again, I think you can experience it, the cool stuff and the action and the military stuff and all that. That's all great too.
I tell you guys, if you're ever getting frustrated with Malazan, just go listen to Philip and AP talk about it. And you're like, oh, I get it now. Yeah, that works a ton. I love this question. At what point does Malazan stop introducing 1,000 characters? It gets hard to remember them all after a while. I'm in book 8 and it's still happening. No, really, I think Bone Hunters is the first one where it's like, you'll go through the dramatics and be like, oh my God, I know 95% of these people. And that's why it's frustrating when people tell you, oh, wait till book 6, but it is the moment where you feel like you know the world enough. And he does still introduce, like Reaper's Gale did a ton of new characters again. And I think that's why the series, I got burned out on the series a little bit after Reaper's Gale. And also because I felt lied to, but we'll talk about that another time. But I think it slows down with it, but he still loves to introduce new characters like a lot. So I'm not gonna
yeah. I mean, there are new characters in the last 2 books too.
Yeah, some said after the last book is over, that's when they stop introducing new characters. So someone said that you need to teach I think you should conduct a online semester-long course of the series because I feel like I miss so much. And yeah, me too.
I do too. I mean, this is the cool thing about Malazan is I feel like it's a series I could reread the rest of my life and still discover new things. So that I love that. I'm totally fine, even with talking with AP, and his perceptiveness is something that is just off the charts. But neither one of us would ever say, oh yeah, we talked about everything in that book, no way, so it's just a matter of accepting, hey, there's new stuff I'm going to find next time I look at this. So
this is how I feel, Boyd, every time I talk to Philip is I feel like I devolve into get to the punching, and he's telling me about the thematic expression that this character made and how it's the most beautiful thing. And I'm like, I completely missed that. So yeah, that's why I want to talk to him about Malazan. I want to talk to him about Robin Hobb because I knew he would know exactly how to get me there. So I am slowly but surely. I think this is the best way for me to do it. Just doing kind of small bites. Like I said, right now I feel like my goal is to finish this by December. Just read along with everything else because I did really overschedule myself this year and I shouldn't have done that. And that's why next year is going to be a clean break. I'm done with all these long series and stuff. And I'm getting back a little bit more freedom. So my goal is to finish Crippled God by next summer. I feel like doing it that way would probably be the best way for me, especially because I've had, again, I've had all those warnings about Dust of Dreams, just like I did Crossroads of Twilight, just like I did Rain Wild Chronicles. Maybe that'll help me think it's not as bad as everybody said it was. Maybe.
Yeah, there is no wrong way to read the series, and if taking your time with it works better for you, then that's great. I would say. I wouldn't be shocked if you found yourself wanting to read The Crippled God, especially a bit faster.
Yeah.
But whatever works for you.
That's
So,
what I've heard. The
yeah.
biggest criticism was that 9 and 10 are one book, just split basically.
They are.
So
They are.
You read 9 by itself, it's just going to feel underwhelming. You're reading Book of the New Sun right now, though, right?
I actually literally right now have started book 4, which is the last book, which is Citadel of the Otark. I started it
so
today.
excited that you guys are having all these conversations. So when I read it and I don't understand it, I've got these reference points to go back to. I'm very excited about this because people are like, you think Malazan doesn't make sense? Just wait till you read Gene Wolfe. I'm like, oh boy, what a sales job, you guys.
Yeah. Well, I will say that it helps a lot if you're comfortable not knowing what's going on with Book of the New Sun, even more than Malazan. It's a lot shorter. The books are actually fairly short, like 250
pages. Yeah, I got
pages.
all 4 books in like one collection, and it's not that
big.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's very hard to explain Book of the New Sun, but I'm glad I'm reading it. And it is one of the most intriguing series I've ever read. I can't say I feel super connected to the characters because I don't feel like that's really what Gene Wolfe was after. I will say that the appeal is really in me trying to struggle to understand what's going on.
Right.
It's a challenge in a way.
That's rough for me. I don't like that kind of sci-fi.
Yeah.
When you don't understand, is this really happening? Is this a dream? Is this a vision? Is this, a different timeline? Unless it's Frank Herbert, I've never understood it when someone else tries it,
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, okay, that's true. In Dune, I know I've only read the first Dune book, but I do feel like there's a bit of that in Dune where I think you.
Oh, yeah, you see multiple timelines, different realities and stuff. Yeah.
Or just
for me, it was clearer.
Dropping,
everything else, I'm like,
or dropping the name of something, and you, the reader, don't know what the heck this is. The characters know what it is, so it would be weird for the characters to explain out loud. This is whatever, and this is how it works. They just use it. There's a ton of that in Book of the New Sun, where he'll just drop all these names of stuff, very Latin based, as in the Latin language. He borrows words that are dead words, but that actually existed once upon a time. And he's got these weird things in there that he's just dropping, like he'll mention a cacogen, and you're like, what is a cacogen? You have no idea what it looks like, what it is, or anything. And okay, you just got to roll with it. And eventually maybe, or maybe not, find out what a cacogen is. So, yeah.
Well, I said this, guys, is why I said I wanted to finish Malazan before I started Prince of Nothing or Book of the New Sun, because I said that's what the series that are apparently much more dense and don't make any sense, the first time you read it. And I'm like, all right, well, I don't think it's like when I said I didn't want to start Malazan before I finished Wheel of Time, because I said I wouldn't finish either of them if I did that, so I think, and I know that's frustrating for some people because they're like, well, when are you finishing Malazan? I'm like, when I finish it, that's
yeah. Oh, that's fair. I will say that Gene Wolfe can write. I mean, the guy, I just started Citadel of the Otark, and I had to reread the first page like 4 times because it was one of the most profound statements I'd ever seen about war. And it was just like, where did this come from? How did this guy think of this stuff? This was just brilliance on the page. So he does that too. Like the guy can write for sure. And it's not a purple prose kind of thing either.
I've seen a lot of this. It doesn't make sense, but his prose is beautiful, is what I'm hearing. So,
yeah.
And I mean, Christopher Rocchio, he just can't say enough about Gene Wolfe. That's basically like his idol, So I would give it a chance just for that reason alone, But I don't know. Hey, Joanna's here.
All right.
Watch your back, guys. Watch your back. She likes to stab people.
Assassin elf. You never know when she'll strike.
Hey, you ever read Zelazny or Zelazny? Zelazny? I don't even call him
Zelazny,
Zelazny.
no,
Zelazny.
that's okay. So one of the many gaps in my fantasy reading is Zelazny, and I have what is it called, Lord of Light. And speaking of Joanna, I'm supposed to read that with her at some point, and that's not exactly probably what most people know Zelazny for. They know him for the Amber Chronicles, right?
Yeah,
It's
that's
probably
what
his
I
most
have. Yeah.
powerful. Yeah. But that's probably where I'll start. And at some point, maybe late this year, early next year, Joanna and I are going to tackle that. So, Lord of Light, and apparently has some philosophical influences in it that are going to be interesting to me. Some Eastern stuff, Hinduism, Buddhism, that sort of thing. So, I'm very intrigued.
Talk about gaps in your fantasy. I think for me, it's Eddings and Feist are the ones that I seem to be
Sure.
a lot of people that are my age read, and I just completely missed those. So
I read
also,
Feist.
I'm probably still going to go back and do Feist, Riff War, but I don't know if I'll do Eddings because people just say like it's just you have to read it when you're younger, kind of thing. I'm like, I don't know. I enjoy reading Percy Jackson with my kids, but like, no, it's not like that. It's just you'll have to read it to understand. I'm like, so do you want me to read it or not? So everybody tells me I should read it, and then they tell me I shouldn't. So who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know with
Period.
The Belgariad is probably what I would read if I read Eddings. I have not read them yet, but what I've heard is that you read one Eddings series, you read them all. That he tends to kind of do the same thing again and again. So I don't know that by my own experience, but that's what I've heard. So maybe reading the Belgariad would be enough. I don't know. But yeah, we'll have to put that. I mean, you know what, Mike? We are never ever going to fill all those gaps. We just have to accept that.
Well, I think I finally have beaten my inner demons and convinced myself stop doing rereads. I think that was a big thing for me. It's like, man, you're complaining about how you don't have any time to read all this stuff, and you keep rereading stuff.
Lord of the Rings, you're never going to reread it?
I'm not saying never. I'm just saying I got to slow down at least for a while, and especially since now because of pricks like you, I got to read all the self pub stuff now. Now I'm really into the self pub, and there's so much self pub out there now I want to read. So you and Ryan really have got me just like, oh, gee, I got to get into this stuff more now. I want to read Chiago's book. I'm going to read Zach Argyle's book. I'm reading Sword of Kaigan this month. So I'm reading Michael R. Miller's Dragon series. So. Yeah, I think it's a great time, I think, for self-pub. And I have to admit that my biases were stupid and ignorant in hindsight. I think not everyone, obviously, but a lot of people consider, oh, well, that just means that you weren't good enough to get signed by a traditional publisher. And I'm like, that's really, really stupid when I talk to people in the business now and realize that might not be the best thing for you. Just losing creative control alone would be enough for me to be like, no, I mean, look at me. I'm about to hit 100,000 subs and I still haven't taken a sponsor. You know why? Because I refuse to relinquish any control over the channel whatsoever.
There you go.
So I get that. And that's why I'm appreciating trying some of these self-pub series out there now. It's a very exciting time, I think.
It is really cool. I'm a judge for SPFBO this year, SPFBO 9. And I have been reading some really solid stories, some really great books. And we got MV Prindle there in the chat, author of Bob the Wizard. Great example. There's just a lot. And there's PL Stewart, who's I already, can't say enough about A Drowned Kingdom. And I'm looking forward to continuing in his series. So you're right about the creative freedom. That is a huge benefit to self-pub. And the other one that I mentioned earlier in terms of my own trilogy is I can put out 3 books in a year if I want to, right?
Yeah, that's what I think the turnaround is that Ryan was telling me the best thing is like that conversation he and I had, I learned a ton. And I was telling people like, look, even if you already entered that, you're a self-pub author and you want to know stuff. I was like, listen to that interview with Ryan because he really did a lot of knowledge out there. And it was just like,
I listened to every word.
Yeah.
Every word of that interview. Yeah. Absolutely.
So Bound and Broken. Look, I'm not telling you to break your TBR or nothing, but I'm telling you to break your TBR. Damn it. This series was written for you, Philip. I'm telling you. Everything you loved about John Gwynn, I think you will find done as good, if not better, in this series. It's like imagine if John Gwynn was writing Song of Ice and Fire. That's how I feel about this. It's that good. Book 3, which is like this, one of the best fantasy books I've read in years, not even kidding. And it was 1,200
Wow.
pages. It had probably 20 main characters. It had like 10 different plot lines, and they were all amazing. I don't know how he
Wow.
pulled it off, really, because I mean, you said I saw that book that thick, and I said, "There's got to be something. There's got to be some fluff in here." This is where I'm like, maybe this is the bad part about self pub. No one there to check you. There's no fat on that book at all. It's incredible how he pulled it off. I don't even know how
Well,
he did it.
I would be shocked if Ryan Cahill didn't have a lot of feedback from
Yeah, no,
people.
he has a serious alpha reader group, and
Yeah,
he listens to them very, very much. So it's amazing.
yeah,
Like he'll tell me he sends them his final draft, and like seriously they will read it in 24 hours, and that's just amazing to me because it just took
yeah,
me like a month to read that book I was just talking about. But yeah,
yeah.
he's got a really good group together. He's got it figured out.
So yeah, that's key, I think. And no one should go into self-publishing thinking, I'm going to write a brilliant book. I won't have to show it to anyone. It's just going to be awesome. My first draft is going to be perfect.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. And so you do need to get feedback. And I was very fortunate to work with that agent and with AP. I've got some fantastic advice.
Hey Philip, you're an author hunk. You, Ryan, who's the third one? Boyd, you gotta let me know who the third one is here. Who are we talking about?
I
We're
think
talking about
your Red Rising guy.
Pierce Brown. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Dude, Pierce Brown's one of those guys. Seriously, like he's so charming. You'll be like, why am I taking my shirt off? It's ridiculous. That guy, this is unfair. He's a talented writer. He looks like a GQ model. Guy has like serious success. It's just not even fair. It's not even fair. But he's so nice too. It's like crushingly nice. It's just
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm honored to be mentioned in the same space as those two for whatever reason. So yeah.
You know what's really funny about the guys is you go on Google Images and you search for Philip Chase and you'll find this picture of him, a faculty picture, probably in his 30s. He's like clean shaven, he's got short hair, and I had a double take. I didn't think it was actually Philip. So
I did get in my early years teaching, I was mistaken for a student a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about that? So Bound of the Broken, do you have any of them yet? Because if not, I'm going to make them.
I'm going to purchase them. I'm thrilled to support Ryan Cahill, and I am excited to read The Bound and the Broken. I'm very excited to read that series. I would even I have to finish my SPFBO reads. That's priority.
Oh, yeah. I got asked, and I was like, I can't do that right now, but I am excited to be reading more self pub.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. I wish I had kind of gotten a team together because most of the judges have people who are helping them. I'm one of the solo judges, not the only one. But I am one of the solo judges. And I have 30 books of my own to read for the contest in the initial stage, which I whittle down to, 5. In my case, I decided I'm going to have 5 semifinalists and I'm going to have 1 finalist, which is going to be one of the 10 finalists. And those 10 finalists, every judge has to read the 10 finalists. So I'll have 9 more finalists to read once I've whittled down my 30 books to 1 finalist. So, and I'm kind of halfway through that now. So I have another video I'm going to put out probably in a week or so about my next semifinalist. But it's a lot. It's a huge commitment. So yeah, but I'm getting.
Who is this? I think we got a bot. We got a bot in the chat.
Speak of the devil.
That sounds made up. Chat GPT or something. So you missed it, AP. We already talked about Malazan. There is a super chat here I want to get to. First, thank you, Sam. He says, I know it might be the right time, but this is the right time. This is the time. I'd like to reserve a chat to ask Philip about Lord of the Ring themes later in the stream if it's acceptable to Mike. So maybe you can give us the shortened version. What are your favorite themes in Lord of the Rings? Me, it's friendship, obviously.
That's beautiful.
But
that's beautiful, especially among the hobbits for me, because as much as I do love Lord of the Rings, I will say that most of the characters are straight out of legend and myth, except for the hobbits. The hobbits are us, really. They're the most human characters, and the friendships among them are just so endearing and beautiful and deep. So yeah, that's a great one, Mike. The one that comes to my mind immediately is definitely, and this comes from me being a medievalist, and I was inspired really by Tolkien to pursue Old English and Old Norse and all that stuff. And so while reading Lord of the Rings, I can really see these themes that Tolkien took from Old English and Old Norse. And one of the really important ones is the fleetingness of life. And so think of how and this is one of the things that makes, to me, Lord of the Rings such a poignant, beautiful series, is the looking back on past civilizations, looking back at the past with this sense of deep, deep melancholy, sorrow, but also beauty for what was. It's just a lot of just, yeah, I totally agree. I think Moorcock was really
He couldn't be
being a
more
bit
of
of
a
a
cock.
rebellious,
That essay,
being a
yeah.
bit of a rebellious teenager. Yeah, with that essay, I have discussed that one with Jimmy in the past, and I think that Moorcock was trying to assert a certain perspective, but was kind of being a jerk about it, in my opinion, in that essay. But I would not call Lord of the Rings naive. There are some beautiful themes in there. Yeah, I don't think that you have to be a Roman Catholic to appreciate the themes that Tolkien has in there. And Tolkien himself, I think, was accurate in his explanation that, there's no overt religion in Lord of the Rings. It's not like C.S. Lewis's Narnia
Right.
tales.
I feel like this question would be more for Narnia than Tolkien. But
Yeah, I think C.S. Lewis was much more an apologist for his faith, whereas Tolkien, yes, he was writing from a perspective of a deeply religious person, but it was not an apology for Catholicism or anything like that. It was just, that's the reverence that is part of his world is probably something that stems from his faith, yes. But it's not like he's trying to convert anyone or anything like that. In fact, he shied away from that sort of thing and said, there's no overt religion in Lord of the Rings, but it is a very spiritual book, I think. And it has a sense of beauty and reverence that is not something you can separate from Tolkien's faith, for sure. So that's what I would say about that.
No, I nailed it, Scott. I love that. I love how these two are at each other's throats. And by the end, I mean, it's always been speculated that Gimli was the first dwarf to go to the Undying Lands. That's amazing, amazing, amazing journey. I love that friendship. So good.
Absolutely. Beautiful stuff.
So what do you think it is? Good.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, to me, one of Tolkien's most brilliant inventions is Gollum. I love the character Gollum because people who accuse Tolkien's of having a simplistic morality, black and white, good and evil, all that, take a good look at Gollum. This is a character who is seen by many of the characters as evil, but is clearly a very human character, is redeemable, is probably one of the best portraits of an addict I've ever seen, is Gollum. It's just brilliant stuff. I don't know where that came from, how Tolkien came up with that, but he tapped into something really, I think, primal about humanity in that character Gollum, and how conflicted. You have the whole Gollum Smeagol thing, which I think they played up really well in the Peter Jackson films.
Oh, sure.
They did a really good job with that, with the whole dialogue back and forth. And
you want to know how much I was stressing about Fellowship of the Ring was a big hit, and I was excited, but I was so nervous for a year because I was like, if they don't get Gollum right, this isn't going to work. This is all going to fall apart because it's going to be CGI character. I was scared. This was 2002, you guys. I was scared. I was like, I feel like it's just going to look like Jar Jar Binks or something. I was terrified.
No.
Yeah, they seriously, as soon as I heard the voice, I was like, oh my God. Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just bless Andy Serkis for
Yeah.
being
I heard
a
he does the
genius.
audiobooks now. That's really cool. See, that stuff like that makes me jealous. I wish I could audio because that would no, stop with the rereads, Mike. Stop with the rereads. No, to pretend I'm never going to read Lord of the Rings again it's just foolish. That's just ridiculous. What do you think
Yeah.
it is about Lord of the Rings makes it feel so good to read that is missing in modern work? Since Philip's answer will be longer, I'll say I think now everyone's obsessed with we've got to make our characters gray, whereas Lord of the Rings pretty much, besides Gollum, has their characters that are clearly white and clearly dark. I feel like with you have the Dark Lord, and there is no, oh well, he's conflicted. Let's take a look at what Sauron's thinking right now. Maybe he's just purely evil, but
Yeah.
now it's about everything's got to be gray. You got to find some kind of layers to the villains and stuff like that. At least that's what I think. One of the big things that's missing.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. I think you're right. I would encourage people to check out Stephen Donaldson's essays on epic fantasy. And I think they're a great answer to that question. He wrote a couple essays on epic fantasy. I did a video on them where I just basically summarized his essays. But his answer to that question is essentially epic fantasy, and he made Tolkien sort of his exhibit A here, is a bit out of sync with a lot of modern literature, in the sense that a lot of modern literature is very existentialist, even sometimes nihilistic, meaning there is no meaning in the universe, right? We don't mean anything. Everything is absurd. Humanity is absurd. We're doomed to be isolated and alone and failures and meaningless, blah, blah, blah. So epic fantasy like Tolkien's, and yet there are other kinds of fantasy, by the way, too, that are more like existentialists, which is fine. I think there's room for all of this. But epic fantasy in the vein of Tolkien asserts fundamentally that we do have meaning. And this is probably related to his faith as well, I would say, that there is beauty in this world, that there is meaning. In fact, I feel like one of the great things about reading Lord of the Rings is you emerge from that experience, having gone on that journey, experienced a lot of the perils vicariously, and you feel like, the world does have more meaning. It has beauty. I feel like I have a clearer sense of the world and my place in it. And maybe that's an illusion. Maybe that's what great stories can do for us. Sometimes, at least. But that's, I think, the difference. Sorry?
Were you finished? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, what were you going to say about Donaldson?
Have you read any Donaldson?
I read Lord Fowl's Bane many years ago.
I get pushed a lot on. People push that one on me a lot. Yeah.
Yep. I want to read that whole series, the Thomas Covenant series.
Is it as messed up as I've been told that it is? Because I remember when I just, like in a book hole, I just said I got it. There were people mad that that I had gotten it because apparently the first book deals with a lot of, let's just say, abuse.
Yeah, no. My short answer to that is no. It is not as messed up. I really. It's kind of tragic that his writing has somehow got that reputation.
Yeah.
Because that is definitely not where I feel Donaldson was coming from. I think that there's a big difference between including something, let's say like rape, in a story, and endorsing something. And most definitely, Donaldson is not endorsing what he's writing about sometimes. And authors do that. They include horrible, tragic stuff in their stories. That doesn't mean that they think this is great, right? Great literature often explores really tough stuff. And that's what Donaldson was doing. I think you have to look at his total vision, not just isolate that one thing and say, ooh, look, Donaldson did this bad. It's just a very simplistic reaction, I think. And you need to look at his whole vision. And I think if you do that, you will come to a very different conclusion about his series. That it does not deserve that reputation. Seems like it, for some people believe that it's a very controversial thing or whatever. I think if people were just going to read it, they would find, and I think that's often the case.
That's what I've said about several classics that I love. That people, if it came out 50 years ago, it should just be done away with. And I know you as a literature professor probably hate hearing that one. With me, it's a lot of these times it's like, well, read it, make up your own mind. Don't Don't listen to what someone else told you. Read it yourself. I mean, even when I am trying to be as positive as I can, a book I did not care for, I tell people all the time. Like when I tore down Name of the Wind, I said, I want you to read it and make up your own mind. I'm not telling you not to read it at all. You know, I want you to, that's an unpopular opinion anyway. I'm probably wrong, you know? So I wish more people would just not go off of what they heard. And I know that there is things where it's like, hey, reviewers you trust and things like that. And I get that. Or if you say, no, that's one topic I'm just not interested in. I get that. But I do wish people would, be honest here, stop shooting off the mouth when they haven't read it, like they know what they're talking about. That really upsets me, especially about classic books, and Tolkien being one of those.
Exactly right. I think people just repeat what they've heard often without actually having done or read the book. Even sometimes it's like, oh yeah, Donaldson does this, you know. Somehow that became a thing, and I think that's unfortunate in this case. So,
Connor, I am happy to defer and let Philip be Batman. I am perfectly fine being Green Lantern. That's cool with me. I like space.
Green Lantern. Yeah, a Green Lantern.
All right, guys. I'm sorry we got rolled deep in that Lord of the Rings stuff, so I missed a ton of your comments. So if you guys want to throw some up here again, I'm not ignoring you. I promise. We just we got excited talking about Lord of the Rings, because I did never get to make when you guys were talking about Rings of Power, and then you guys were being super, super positive on Rings of Power, and I felt like I would have just been bringing the party down. So,
Well, when AP and I were talking about Rings of Power, I didn't feel like we were super positive, but because we weren't crapping all over it, we probably seemed super positive.
Same. Me and Madison, we were doing Wheel of Time. We were like, let's focus on the positive. And since we weren't flipping tables and stuff, which isn't exactly my style, people thought that we loved it. And I was like, no, we just made a conscious effort to try to be positive, because that's the style of my channel. I try to be positive on these things. So I get that. I saw this one. I think Long Walk, I think Bag of Bones is a good book, but Long Walk's one of my favorite Stephen King stories. And you'll see so many things out there, Hunger Games, that borrowed a ton from The Long Walk. No doubt. That's one of the best dystopian books I've ever read. It's really, really good.
Cool. Yeah.
Awesome, man. This is good. This is really, really good. I'm only about a quarter of the way up, but man, this is damn good. I'm glad that I went ahead and cut this to the front of the line. So this is one I've been hearing about for years, and I just never. It's probably not my style, but I thought it was like a thriller or something, or a crime drama or something. And when I read the synopsis, I was like, holy hell, how have I missed this the whole time? So yeah, Stephen King fans recommend this to me. They're right so far. You ever even heard of it?
I don't know anything about it. Is it horror?
It's post-apocalyptic, but I'm not on the pre-apocalyptic stage of the book right now. Things are about to go to shit. But yeah, it's really, really good in that Stephen King way. About you can tell how he's setting up these really damaged characters before the bad stuff happens. So yeah,
I heard you talking about it, and I thought, whoa, that sounds interesting.
It's really good so far. Apparently, it's pretty divisive because there is like a big time jump in the book, and that bothers some people. So I feel like going into it knowing that, that's probably going to be a good thing for me. I don't know.
Okay. No, time jumps happen.
And someone keeps asking about True Grit. I have not read it. Lonesome Dove was really my first real Western I finished. Have you ever read True Grit?
I have not. I have to admit, I have not read a ton of Westerns, and I'm surprised you're a Texan there, aren't you? So, I mean, shouldn't you have read more Westerns?
No, believe it or not, Houston is one of the biggest metropolises in the country. We don't have a lot of horses and boots and cowboys, running around the streets here. You have to go a little. You mean
there's a difference between
there is
Houston
a big difference. I mean, everybody thinks that they watch No Country for Old Men and they decide that's what Texas is like. And that's not. There's parts of Texas like that. But that is not what Texas is like. At least not Houston. But yeah.
I've been to Dallas and I've been to Lubbock. Now, Lubbock is cowboy Texas, right? I mean, that's Southwest Texas.
Much more than here.
Yeah. So, but I have to go to Houston someday, experience that. So when it's not quite as hot, right? It's been a little warm there.
It's been bad this year, man. It's like, look, I know that everyone always wants to think that everything is either the best ever or the worst ever, but I was like, I've been here since '93. I don't remember it ever being this hot. So it's just like, it's just been relentless. 105, 107 every day. Like, it's been so bad. We haven't even been taken to the kids to the pool. And we used to bitch that the pool was only open for 3 months of the year. And we're like, I ain't going out there. Water feels like saliva anyway. It's not even cool. It's not even refreshing to get in the pool. Yeah, it's awful. It's awful.
I mean, there's got to be a certain percentage of saliva and other body fluids in any given public pool anyway, I suppose.
You know, T, I've never had much of an interest in reading Grisham. I don't know. I think the guy is obviously mega talented. I mean, to be doing it as long as he did and as successful as he was, but it's just not my style. I think besides Crichton, I never really stuck out in those, I guess you call them airport novels. Like you'd always find their book at the airport. I never really read those. The Clive Cusslers, the James Pattersons, the John Grishams. I never really read very many of their books. And it wasn't like I thought I was too cool for them. It just wasn't really my thing. It's really hard for me to step outside of my big three: horror, sci-fi, and fantasy. It's really, really hard for me to step, especially when you run a channel like this and you get so many good recommendations. It's hard for me to step out of that.
I will say though, that even though I haven't really read Westerns, and when Ed and Will over at the Brothers Gwyn talk about Westerns, they make it sound like so much fun. So who knows, you know, and you seem to love Lonesome
Lonesome Dove was amazing.
So
amazing.
Much.
God, so good.
So I do feel the temptation. And when I was a kid, I think right around kindergarten, I so wanted to be a cowboy. I had the boots. In fact, I wouldn't wear anything on my feet.
I think every kid went through that. Yeah. That and thinking they were going to be a paleontologist. Yeah. We all go through that. Yeah.
Yep. So I had my cowboy phase where I had the hat and the little holster and everything and little cap guns. So yeah, there's definitely an inner child in me that wants to read some Westerns. So I have read some McCarthy, The Road. So, but that's not really Western. That's post-apocalyptic.
I started with The Road and I loved it. Blood Meridian, not so much. I can see why people like Blood Meridian. It just wasn't for me. But I am going to be doing All the Pretty Horses in January. They're doing a read along on the Discord, and I said I would commit to book 1 of the Border trilogy and see if I like it. So, I think he's obviously very, very talented. I just wasn't wild about Blood Meridian. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, The Road had a big impact on me. It was a read that was like, oh yeah, this is bleak, and I guess it's not the most bleak McCarthy book out there.
I think that Blood Meridian was way more bleak, like to the point of it being like not enjoyable. So it's like, you know how you get past that point of like nihilism? This is like that to the nth power. It's like, oh my God. Yeah. So
wow. Yeah. So beyond grimdark, like makes First Law.
Well, I mean, like if you want to be serious, if you want to be honest, you know, if you're talking about the Old West in the States, I mean that is grimdark. You know, it was hard to stay alive, you know, before westward expansion, and I think that's a big theme in Lonesome Dove. Is it's hard just staying alive when you're doing a trail ride. You know, everything wants to kill you. You know, we might love the earth, but the earth does not love us when it's a untapped.
Talk about a hostile universe, right? Yeah.
It's rough, and I think that a lot of people grew up watching John Wayne movies, and I think that they thought that the West was like all glorified stuff, and then you start learning about it like pre-1900s. It's like that was not easy. That was not easy living. It was not easy to stay alive at all. That's why people had like 12 kids, because they're like 9 of them are probably going to die. Right. So sad truth. Yeah. All right, just the happy rosy topics tonight. So what you got coming up after you finish Book of New Sun? What you gonna be reading after that? Anything fun, or is it just all heavy stuff for you going forward?
I have some fun stuff. Let's see. Not necessarily in this order, but I'm going to finish the Books of Babel fairly soon. So I'm on the last book, which is
I have all of those. Yeah, that's the one that's very, very divisive. Very divisive.
So I mean, there are people like Alan who love it, and then people like Patrick who don't. And Patrick did love the first 3. So
right.
I'm curious. We'll see. I will say that I have loved Bancroft's writing so far. I think he's one of the quirkier and more talented writers in the genre right now. And it's kind of steampunk fantasy, if you like that sort of thing. But for me, Books of Babel has been a total win thus far. So I'm curious to see what happens there. You want to answer that one?
Yeah, I have done that video. It's 19. Because 19, if you've read Dark Tower, that's a very significant number in the multiverse. So I did 19 best villains. So check it out. I've got a playlist of Stephen King stuff. Just go to my playlist.
Didn't you read The Gunslinger at 19, or you had some 19 thing going on there with the Dark Tower, didn't you?
Well, when I was rereading it all, I was finding all the 19s in all of his books and stuff like that. But, That was one of my things where I said my rereads are going to stop except Stephen King as I'm doing Into the Multiverse. But even then, I was going to take it a break, you know, at least until I finish this Realm of the Elderlings and the Expanse. I want to make sure that I don't end up having to, because I'm getting some of those books are kind of chunky now. And I'm like, I don't want to say I can't finish this series that I promised I was going to finish this year because I had to reread a Stephen King book, you know. So just taking
Yeah.
a quick little break. What about Dresden? You ever going to get back to Dresden?
Oh yeah, I definitely want to. I read the 6th book earlier this year, and it's been a while.
Good,
so I
because
need to.
Deadbeat's great. You're going to love Deadbeat.
That's what I hear. So my strategy with Dresden right now is, because I keep hearing there's a certain point where you're not going to want to. It's not the monster of the week kind of thing. It's more of a, you don't want to stop reading these books because they all become much more interconnected and that sort of thing. So I'm thinking late this year or early next year, I'm just going to go on that roller coaster and read the rest of the Dresden books fairly close together. Because I've been using them, you know, like the idea before was to use them as palate cleansers, you know, and they worked really well for that for me, for the first 6 books. So, and I've enjoyed them. And I'm looking forward to hopefully getting to that point where I do get into the thing full throttle, you know. So we'll see. But yeah, I'll get back to Dresden for sure. But first, I do have some other buddy reads to get through. I got to get through the Greenbone saga. I started Neil Gaiman's The Sandman, which has been really cool so far.
Yeah, you see, you're reading so much comics and manga now. It's weird. It's weird because I thought, oh, Philip's probably above that. He's over there puffing on his like pipe and drinking his brandy and stuff. He ain't got time for comics. And like, you and Murphy are blowing through like all these. I got this today. Can you believe somebody sent this shit to me? Is this ridiculous?
Oh, wow.
Because I said I wasn't gonna read One Piece. So they resisted and said, yes, you are. They sent me this, which I know again, it's got like 700 plus volumes. This is 23, so it's not even like a sneeze of the full series. But I gotta say one thing about the One Piece fans: they're passionate. They're very, very passionate.
So yeah, they are very passionate. Very passionate. But yeah, I have to say that the manga reads with Murphy have been so much fun, and there's some great storytelling in that medium.
Vinland Saga is amazing. I love Vinland.
I loved Vinland Saga. No, I am an old Norse Viking dude, so
I'm an easy sell on that. Yeah, it's give me some stuff of like that period of Norse history, and then give me the same. It's the same to me as like, hey, it's a fantasy book with a dragon in it. Okay, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll try it. Yeah, it's easy sell for me, no doubt.
Yeah, it was great, and it was great storytelling too. On top of that, but the one that I think so far, I've only read 3, so I don't have an extensive repertoire of manga under my belt. But I will say that Vagabond was for me one of my favorite reads of the year. I mean, it was just
the first 9 volumes of that. So
yeah, and that they don't go too much further. Well, 9. What is it? Now I can't remember. 15.
Hey, there's 12, so I've got 9 of them. Yeah.
12. Yeah, but it's unfinished. Probably will remain so. But the mangaka has left a sort of ending, if you will, and it is one of the most beautiful storytelling experiences I've ever had the privilege to have. It was just so moving. The art was so beautiful. I was just so profoundly moved by this ending that is sort of an ending, but not really to the series. But the whole thing was just a great meditation on stuff like flow and our interconnectedness and all kinds of stuff. And there's action too. There's plenty of violence in there. But I was very, very pleasantly surprised by the greatness of the storytelling I've encountered so far.
Yeah. So are you done with Monster? Or are you still working on it? Because I'm still working on Monster.
Yeah. We finished Monster. That one was good too. I won't say I enjoyed it as much as Vinland Saga or Vagabond, but it was fun. It was different.
Yeah, I like the mystery of it. And Urasawa is the one that gets recommended to me as a Stephen King fan. His 20th Century Boys is basically like his version of It. And I say that sounds great to me. So yeah, I mean, I will say one thing about manga fans: they're passionate, but they're very kind. I mean, I've had people send me complete series just because they want me to read them. and I wish that I could spend more time on it. But I keep picking up books that are this damn thick on a whim, and it takes up all my time to do everything else. But I think with me, when it comes to manga, if I had someone I was discussing them with, like you, maybe I'd keep myself more honest on it, because I will kind of go through like a phase. Like I remember I wasn't reading any, and then like I read like Death Note in like a week, like the whole series in like a week, and that's because that's just it's easier to read manga, binge it, I think. But when you get these ones that got like 300 volumes, that's like that might take a little bit longer. So has she convinced
honestly,
you to try?
I will. What's that?
Has she convinced you to try One Piece yet?
One Piece. So to answer that, she's so far ahead of me in One Piece right now.
Can't have conversations about it.
We can't really collaborate on it because I would be totally new to it, and she would, she's just so far into it. So we're doing other stuff right now. Our next one is To Your Eternity. I don't know a ton about it, but it comes recommended by a lot of the people who've been watching our discussions. I would like to check out One Piece someday. I don't know when exactly. I'm enjoying the collaborative aspect of with Murphy right now. It's just been so much fun. A lot of people want us to see us do Berserk. I will probably try Berserk someday. We'll see.
Berserk at its peak is, like just the Golden Age arc alone is probably one of the best stories, best coming of age stories I've read. It's really damn good.
Yeah,
but you gotta be careful because Kentaro Miura, he will set the bar for what you expect of art so high that everything else will kind of look dingy to you, because his art is just incredible. Like this guy would spend like 2 weeks like drawing a talon. I mean, he was amazing. He really was amazing.
Yeah.
Here, Andrew wants to restart. So there you go.
All right, there we go. Andrew, have you read One Piece yet? Are you into it?
I think he is, because he's saying my short today about getting that made him want to restart. He said, and apparently he just added $400 a manga to his basket on Amazon. So be careful. Be careful. These videos are.
Yikes! Yeah, manga's not cheap. That's a problem.
Yeah. So I say it is nice that we've had very, very kind people send me things, and so I think I gotta start reading some of these, because I mean, I was never like, I refuse to read One Piece. I just said, from what people have told me, it probably wouldn't be my thing. It wouldn't be a thing that I'm into. But now I feel like, okay, well, I at least got to try. You know, someone sends you a $200 set of books. I feel like you owe it to them to at least try. So we'll see.
Do you think you would want to read it maybe with your son?
That's what people have been saying, that maybe I would want to do that. I tried with him it was a Legend of Zelda manga. I tried with him. He just could not grasp the right to left thing. He couldn't get it, and he got frustrated and just quit. So probably not. But I am excited that you're reading Sandman, though, because I remember I found Sandman when I was in high school, and that was at the time when I was still just strictly Marvel, DC, regular superheroes, Justice League, Avengers, and that was the first one where I was like, I didn't know they could do stuff like this in a comic book. That's great stuff. And I think it's kind of, I don't want to say it's ruined Neil Gaiman stuff for me. It's just got to the point where, like, I don't feel like I'm ever going to read anything by Neil Gaiman that touches that. And I don't even know. The only thing else I've read by him is Stardust. But Sandman is amazing. Top 10 comic series of all time, without a doubt.
Yeah, I love American Gods, and I love The Ocean at the End of the Lane. So those are my favorite Gaiman. I've always felt like I really should have read The Sandman, though, because I think he's most known for that, probably. But I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah. Oh, Jordan.
I offered one time, hey, let's freak them out, and you wear like an Iron Maiden t-shirt, and I'll wear a tweed jacket. We'll surprise people. No, I think we did that thing where we kind of dunked on each other a couple times, and he got me so good. I said, all right, well, I'm not gonna mess with that anymore, because
I did. I mean, you did a nice imitation. It was very sweet. You kind of nailed me pretty well there. And then I did a thing where I did tag you in one of those tag videos. Right?
Yeah, and then all the comments were really mean, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. No, Orlando, I have not read Shadow of the Torturer. Talking about that earlier. Philip is almost done with Book of New Sun, but I have not. I want to finish Malazan before I do it. But I got that beautiful Folio Society edition, so I do want to do it for sure.
Oh, you're so lucky you have that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. Again, I have some of the most generous viewers in the world, and I feel like I owe it to them. They send me something that pretty and that nice. I've got to do it. So
Eventually, you know, it's like a reviewer, though. A lot of people, you know, will send you their books, but I don't think that there should be an expectation that you have to review the book just because they sent it to
yeah,
you,
yeah. I
right?
tell people when they ask if they can send me a copy, it's like I can't promise you that I'll ever get to it, but
Right.
I'll try to help you out the best that I can. At least just like getting your name out there, if that helps at
Yeah.
all. And so, but Jared, Saga is amazing. What killed Saga for me was like 6 year wait, doing a cliffhanger, and then give us like a 6 year wait between, issue what I don't even remember, but it was a long wait. It probably wasn't 6 years. I think it was 3, but it felt like 6, and it just kind of took me out of the series. But yeah, it's an amazing, amazing sci-fi series. And I saw that trailer for that new Zack Snyder movie called Rebel Moon. And I was like, this looks like Saga. This looks amazing. So hopefully it can be
Oh,
half as good. Yeah, good stuff.
cool. I think Jared wants you to read Book of the New Sun too.
Yeah, I'm thinking so. But he loves Blood Meridian, so I don't know how much I can take his advice to heart. So.
Oh no, you're not going to let him go on that one,
Oh
are
my
you?
God, are you gonna splurge on those Broken Binding Malazan books?
Okay, so you probably have seen my books. I have a lot of used, old, tattered,
Yeah. Are these too
dusty
pretty
books.
for you? Too pretty? They would ruin your collection.
I feel the temptation to purchase these books. I haven't. Oh, my wife is probably watching this. Oh no! Shh! Don't tell her. Well, she probably knows now. I am very tempted. I will have to look at the price, but we will see. Oh, I can hear her upstairs. Uh-oh.
I mean, I feel like say
We'll
if they
see.
average about they usually most of their books usually average about $50 to $65 or so with shipping. So times
And there's
10.
only 10.
And I wouldn't even be surprised if they did some volume 1, volume 2s because some of these books get thick.
Oh
So
no, Mike! Don't tell me that.
I
Oh,
mean, here's me with stuff like that is within reason. I'm like, am I going to look back in a couple years when it's not available anymore? Am I going to regret that I didn't do it? Then I'd probably go ahead and do it. But if you're talking about 4 figures, it's getting up there when it's just for books. I don't know.
but
It's tough.
but this is my favorite series of all time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And
So I feel like you might end up regretting it.
my current copies are all over the place. I have mass market for some of them. I have used,
I would
trade
definitely like to
paperbacks
upgrade because
for
these are
some of
unreadable.
them. Yeah, no, those mass market are the only ones that are readily available, and I think with my eyes right now, it would be very difficult to read them. But yeah, no, I'm seriously tempted to get those broken binding. We'll see what they look like, and it'll be. I'm not a collector, but I might just have to take a peek at those. We'll see.
There you go. I mean, look at this. Bad influences all over this channel. It's not bad. It's not a bad price, Philip. You guys are getting him in trouble with his wife right now. She's like eyeballing
Yeah.
you. Watch out. Watch out. All right, let's change the subject real quick. How was Vegas? How was Nepal? Because I feel like, hey, I went to the Caribbean. It was beautiful. And Philip's like, oh, yeah, I went to Nepal. I'm like, oh, shit. All right. So how was it?
Well, first of all, I think the Caribbean is
Oh, yeah, it's great.
fantastic.
I love it. I love it. It's easily
Yeah.
attainable, though. I don't see myself ever getting to Nepal. How was that?
It's awesome. I've lived there before, so it's a very special place for me. And I have family there, so it was really a wonderful experience to see my family members over there again, and to get my Nepali back up to speed to some extent. I'm not a very
Oh, wait,
fluent
wait, wait. Is
speaker.
this like your 6th language you can speak? Nepali?
Um, it depends on how you count. I wouldn't say any of them I speak fluently, but there's probably 7 or 8 sort of in here somewhere.
Doesn't even register.
But none of
We are
them.
not the same.
Yeah.
Because like in Houston, real big. I mean, obviously we're stone's throw from Mexico, and it's like
Yeah.
if you out here they want you to be bilingual, especially in business and stuff. And I got
Oh,
lazy once I met my wife, and she was fluent in Spanish. I said, well, I got
he's
my
fluent.
3PO now. I don't need to learn Spanish. I got her now. But like that isn't
Yeah.
helping me when I'm working. So I should probably get back on that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love languages. I'm fascinated by them. But Nepal is it's such a beautiful country. Of course, that's where the Himalayas are. You've got Mount Everest there. But there's also a tremendous diversity. Speaking of languages, there's like 70 different languages in Nepal. The biggest one being Nepali, which is related to Hindi. Those are all Sanskrit derived languages. But the landscape is just tremendous. I mean, you've got the Himalayas, you've got these middle range mountains where Kathmandu is, the capital. And Kathmandu has a perfect climate. It's basically around the same latitude as Florida, but it's 4,344 feet up. So it's very mild. It's in a valley surrounded by mountains. It's just a really wonderful place.
Can you see Everest? Like no matter where you are there, you can see Everest, right?
You can see Everest. However, in the summer, it's monsoon and it's usually cloudy. So you can't see most of the time. I did get a few glimpses of the Himalayas this time, but I've been there in the winter where you can see the whole vista. And it's just like these mountains are just like, dominating the sky. And it's mind blowing. And I've seen some big mountains here in the States. Like I lived in Washington State where you can see Rainier from just about everywhere. But even Rainier looks tiny next to the Himalayas.
Yeah. My bucket list, both of our bucket lists is Ireland, obviously. So we trace both of our ancestry back to Ireland. So that's obviously like bucket list. We're like, that's a the kids are gone kind of trip, so we can really just go all out. So I feel like if I ever make the leap across the pond, it's going to be for Ireland, and probably end up doing an Ireland-Scotland trip together.
Oh, you should do it. You should do it, Mike. You really should. You'd love it. You'd love it.
Yeah. Well, maybe I can buy those broken binding special editions of Malazan and then sell them in a few years to be able to fund that trip. All the people
somebody like me. Yeah.
Andrew, I disagree. If Klingon counts, Elvish counts. Okay.
Oh, Elvish. Now, which kind of Elvish are you talking about? The Sindarin kind or the High Elvish? The Quenya? I don't know which one.
I think this whatever Tolkien uses. Yeah.
Well, he invented two because one Elvish language was not enough for him, so he did two. So
that's a good point. No Everest in Ireland. Yeah, you're right.
No Everest, but some gorgeous landscapes anyway. So.
Will there be a Kickstarter deluxe, hopefully illustrated edition of Way of Edan?
Well, I actually, in all seriousness, would love to do something like that. And I will, after the third book comes out, which is soon, September 21, I would like to put out some feelers and see if there's somewhere the Broken Binding or something like that.
I'm sure Broken Binding would do something with you. Yeah.
So cool. So I would probably want to do a Kickstarter or something. And, I love the covers myself. I love the whole stained glass motif that I've got going on these.
That's great.
Especially with the third one coming out. I really love the third cover, even probably the most. So I think they could do something cool with that, maybe give them some nice texture, even maybe, or extra, cool looking windows or something. But yeah, so I would probably try to explore that later this year, and then maybe early next year make some kind of an announcement to see what we can get going. Yeah, I'd love it.
Do a omnibus, like the whole trilogy.
I'd like that. I don't know if it would all fit in one book, though.
Yeah, sure. Just make it like 4-point font. It'll fit.
Yeah. I want it to be readable. So
I'm so happy with. I haven't had a bad experience yet, because I get every once in a while, I get people like, "Oh, I had such a bad experience on Kickstarter." I feel like it's just helping. I just love seeing these people getting their projects funded in like 20 minutes. It's amazing because I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Kickstarter first started going, and like most people did not fund, and they would set their goal a little lower, and then they start paying out of pocket for the rest of stuff. And I'm seeing these people like hitting every stretch goal and just being like, okay, I guess I'm just going to throw like bookmarks or something in because, I've made so much over what I've expected to make. So that's great.
Yeah, it's so cool. I'm very hopeful, and we'll see. I'd love to be able to deliver a beautiful book, and just in terms of the story, but also in terms of the aesthetics as well. I'm happy with what I've got, but it's not a deluxe hardcover thing. So it'd be really cool to be able to. I'd love to have some art inside the books as well. So that's something I'd have to look into, maybe commissioning. So we'll see. I do have a couple artists in mind for that, but I haven't really started looking into it yet. But it's some internal art I think would be awesome too.
So where you want to go to vacation next? You have anything planned?
Oh, goodness. I think we are talking about Europe next year. We'll see. That's not booked yet or anything, but I would love to go back to the British Isles. We have family in London actually, so that would be nice to visit them. I'm at an age really where usually when we go somewhere, it's to see people, and the place is sort of secondary. But I do love going over to England partly because of, I'm a medievalist and a lot of what I study is over there. So yeah.
You get you some nice Earl Grey and get the pinky up while you drink it.
Yeah. Well, I do drink tea every morning, but it is a good way to get yourself started for the day, I think. But I'm doing the pinky thing, but
I mean, I'll do it ironically, when I drink my green tea. But it's
yeah,
it is what it is. I think of us, we're still got younger kids, so we're finally going to splurge to do that Disney trip. Not next year. We already have 2 trips planned for next year, but 2025, I think. But we're at the point now where like, okay, well, the oldest one's going to be like too old. You're not really too old. I mean, because are you ever really too old for Disney? I mean, my wife's probably the one who wants to go the most, but it's just you get, what it's like when you're like a teenage boy and you think you're just too cool. You don't want anything that's considered for kids, So we want to make sure that we go before he's just decides, hey, you know what? I just discovered girls and I'm not really interested in, Mickey Mouse anymore, but it's different than it was, I think, when we were younger. Now you got, Marvel, you got Star Wars, you got Harry Potter at Universal and stuff. You got all kinds of stuff now. That doesn't really matter, but we figured that's going to be like the last chance. We had planned to go, and then, Viruses Shall Not Be Named happened. That kind of just killed all of our plans. And then we just keep kicking it down the road each year because every time we go on a cruise, we book another one. So it's just so easy. It's just so easy. Hey, cool. So you got everything taken care of. I ain't got to worry about my room and my board and my meals and all the stuff. So it's all in one place. It's great. I don't have to worry about travel.
I've never been on a cruise myself. That's one thing I've never done. Yeah, Disney sounds like fun, and I think being young in spirit is important. I think there's a lot of us on BookTube who embrace our inner child, and I think that's wonderful. A lot of the times I feel sorry for people who somehow have just suppressed their imaginations. So I think it's wonderful to be excited. I would love to go to New Zealand. I would really love it.
Yes. Yeah. And that's one of those things that and I know it's the thing to say, oh yeah, I want to see Middle Earth, basically. It's like, I would think that feels like insulting, but no, like New Zealand people, they've embraced that. They think that's everything, and I would love it. I would be the biggest tourist ever. I'd have like the camera hanging around my neck kind of thing. So excited to go see that. Walking with a Gandalf wizard staff. I would be all in if I went there. I mean, you never see me geek out like
unashamedly.
Yeah. Oh no.
Unashamedly wield your staff. Yes, absolutely.
I want to go to all the Hobbit themed restaurants, all that stuff. Bring it all on.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to do that. So I think besides Ireland, that would definitely be, my biggest want is go do all the Lord of the Rings tour and stuff. I think it'd be amazing.
Oh, I would definitely toast you in the Prancing Pony. I mean, that would be fun.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. So what else? What else is going on?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm trying to think of all the other stuff I'm getting into reading wise. I mentioned the Greenbone Saga. You've read that, right?
I finished that. Yeah. Well, have you started yet?
I've read Jade City and I liked it. I started Jade War and I took some time to feel comfortable with Jade War, just because the scope broadened. I really liked the specific locale in Jade City. It felt like part of the personality of the book because it was very specific to that city. And then it broadened in the beginning of Jade War. And I get that, what Fonda Lee is doing there. But for me, it took a little while to feel engaged in that bigger context. And I started to feel more engaged when I actually stopped because I was in a buddy read for some people, and somebody had one of the persons involved had a really wonderful thing happen. I had a baby, and so that sort of just got put on hold. So I put down Jade War about 2/3 of the way through, which is not, it was not me stopping the read. It was me thinking, okay, this discussion is not going to happen. So I have like 6 other buddy reads. Let me get on to one of the other ones. So, but I'm excited to get back into it eventually.
No, it's very cool. I'll be interested to see if, because I always tease you about saying your favorite book is always the most recent one that you've read. Is everyone apparently besides me thinks book 3 is the best, except me and Brian. Brian, he likes book number 2 the best. And when I finished it, I said Jade City was my favorite. But after some reflection, I think I switched. It was on a Tall Guy Reads. I was on his channel, Alex, and we were doing a spoiler discussion about it. And I was like, now that I keep thinking about it, I think I'm going to flip my answer to Jade War. Jade Legacy, and I don't want to give away anything, but there's a narrative choice that she makes in it that really, really confused me why she made that decision. It makes sense if you when you look at certain things, but I'll be interested to see how you feel, where you land when you finish about which one is your favorite. But I'll just say Aitmata and Hilo, they did nothing wrong. Okay, I wish I could just sit down and just hammer this out and just work things out. Let's have a truce of some sort, because I like both of those, and it's something that she's pretty good at. Is I do like both of those characters, and they're not very likable people, but I don't want to see them fight and kill each other. And so a lot of authors aren't good at making me do that with both sides, where I don't want either one of them to fight. Like, George R. Martin's the master at that. Like, okay, cool, they're fighting. Yeah. Oh wait, they're fighting that other character that I love. So I think she's pretty good at that. So I hope you have the same experience.
Yeah, sign of a great writer, especially when they take a character, like Jaime Lannister, who seems like a complete and utter
irredeemable. Yeah. Irredeemable.
Horrible.
Does it? Yeah.
Worst person ever. And then by the 3rd book, you're like, go Jaime. So
you're like, don't kill. He's on my do not kill list. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
Philip writes some sympathetic antagonists too. I haven't read book 2 yet, so we'll see.
I tried for that. Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much. Yeah,
so you had this real thing for like horny priests. In way of Edan, huh?
There's at least one.
I mean, that was exciting. I really did like the magic battles and stuff were really cool. I think he did a really great job with that. I really, really dug that. I love 2 guy friends just kind of hanging out, roughing it in the wilderness. That's always something that's a real favorite of mine. So I could feel your love for many things fantasy with that series. Yeah. So I will continue.
Well, I love the blurb. The blurb you gave me, I thought was really great. I thought it was very insightful.
Which one? I gave you like 5 of them. This is the thing that I started doing now. I'll tell guys, give you a little trade secret. Is when an author asks me for a blurb now, I used to be like, oh, that's great. That's like my ultimate goal with the channel, to be able to get blurbed on a book. Now when I'm getting asked, now I get nervous. I'm like, oh God, what if my blurb sucks? So I'll write 5 or 6 and ask them to choose their favorite.
Yeah.
So it's the safe way. So yeah.
So you compared me to 2 authors that no one else compared me to. But I thought actually there was some real insight in those comparisons. I mean, I'm saying that because, and I'm incredibly honored by the comparisons. And I
do Follett and Ken Follett and Tad Williams. Yeah.
Yep. You did Ken Follett and Tad Williams, which no one else, at least at the time, had compared my writing to. And I thought about it. And I thought, you know what? I read Pillars of the Earth twice in the 90s. And I read Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn before I ever started writing myself. Okay. So I thought, you know what? I thought about it for a moment too. I thought, I think Mike is right. I never even realized it myself. But I think that that's actually a very insightful comparison in some ways, in terms of, for me, Tad Williams especially, because of where he lands as a writer who is definitely engaged with what people call classic fantasy. He's read his Tolkien, but he's also in many ways, I think, a much more modern writer. He's definitely doing some innovative stuff. So I love the comparison myself. So.
Well, I'll tell you this with Tad Williams and this is about as high a compliment as I can give. If you had told me that J.R.R. Tolkien was still alive in that time period that Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn was written, I said that feels like the story that he would have written. and that's
Yeah.
I mean that's a hell of a compliment, I think. But I
Yeah.
looked at that series and I'm like, I disagree with my brother who thinks that Song of Ice and Fire is completely ripped off Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. I can see where he's coming from on a few things, but I was like, I can see a ton of authors that were writing in the late 90s, early 2000s that borrowed heavily from Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. Like a lot.
Sure.
Like Assassin's Apprentice, Robin Hobb read Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. There's no doubt to me. So
Yeah.
yeah, I can see a lot
That's
of
an
people
apt
did
comparison.
borrow from him. So I think that he was doing a lot of things that are considered normal fantasy now, but he was doing them. He was a trailblazer in that regard, I think, in taking that transition from traditional fantasy to, hey, you know what? Characters die. You know, the good guys don't always win. There's some really crazy stuff going on. So I think he was a
Right.
trailblazer in that regard. I wish he got more credit because I feel like he doesn't.
Yeah. 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 No, I tend to agree with you actually on both of those assertions. So for sure. And Jared, don't worry. Book 3 is coming out September 21. Even if I croak tomorrow, Amazon KDP has it already, so
Oh, they
you'd
already
be able
got
to
it.
get.
Yeah, it's posthumous
Yeah,
release, guys. Posthumous release.
they've got it.
Well, I think that when it comes to Kim Follett, I haven't read Pillars since high school, but I remember being like one of the best damn books I'd ever read at the time I read it, and just it was so hard trying to sell that book to friends of mine because they're like, really, like a 1,200-page book about building a cathedral? No, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it's more than that, but how else do you sell that book to someone? But yeah, that's an amazing book, and I see all these people. And that's when I got to be like, no rereads, Mike, because everyone in my Discord was reading it, just gushing about it, and I was like, damn, I want to read it again because I was a teenager last time I read that.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to reread it. I loved it. I love that book. So yeah, cool. Yeah. I mean, I hadn't thought of it myself. There were other authors that I would definitely list, like Bang, Bang, Bang. These are my big influences. But it wasn't until Mike said Tad Williams, I thought, you know what? I think he's probably right.
See, and I thought
Speaking of
people
which,
thought I was just throwing shit at the wall. So I'm glad that you appreciated it. I don't try to
yeah,
make
no,
comparisons like that very, very often unless I actually do see it. So yeah, I mean, I just read Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn for the first time, last year. So I think
right,
it
right.
was pretty fresh. So Jerry wants to know your besides Beowulf, what writers would you say you're most influenced by?
Yeah, so and Beowulf is huge for me, and there was a recent review of The Way of Adan by Liam from Liam's Lyceum. And Liam, by the way, is another person who actually does know Old English. So I was really keen to hear what he had to say. And he mentioned in the course of his review that in many ways, my writing is actually much more obviously influenced by Old English than Tolkien's. And I think that's probably true. That yes, Old English is important for Tolkien, but so are many other things. There's definitely some Finnish influence in there, the Kalevala. There's biblical influence in Tolkien. There's a lot of just other stuff going on. Whereas I think in some ways what I've done is much more obviously inspired by Old English, by Beowulf, and also Old Norse, the sagas and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of that. But in terms of modern fantasy, Tolkien was as I said in videos, was the author who baptized my imagination. And that was what when I was a 12-year-old reading Lord of the Rings, thought to myself, I want to do that to people. What Tolkien just did to me, that's what I want to do. And I think you can explain the rest of my life really from there. Absolutely right. Mick Garfield, as always, Mick Garfield is just full of insights. And Le Guin is a huge influence. After Tolkien, I would say the most obvious, from my perspective, is Ursula Le Guin, whose Earthsea books are very foundational.
I haven't read her before, and I'm embarrassed about that. That's one of those. That's
I
one of those.
know.
I put out a video recently about popular sci-fi books that I want to read. I'm going to do the same with fantasy, and Le Guin's going to be on there, no doubt.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, she's foundational for me. I think a lot of modern fantasy readers struggle with the Earthsea books because of the language, perhaps. Her prose is maybe a little more archaic than some modern readers are used to. It's beautiful, though. It's just gorgeous. It's dreamlike for me. But Le Guin is a big one. I would say that in terms of the more modern stuff, that George R. R. Martin is probably not one I talk about a ton, but I think I read A Song of Ice and Fire, whatever was out up to 2004 before I started writing. So I don't remember if that was 3 books or 4 at that point. 3, I think.
Yeah, it was 3 because Feast for Crows was 2005. I
Okay,
remember because
so
I was excited, and then I got it, and like, hey, where are my 3 favorite characters? You know, so that's what I remember about it. Yeah.
so in terms of, I think anybody who's read the books would agree that my writing is a bit bloodier than a lot of, particularly book 2. I think book 2, Prophet of Edan, is much more action packed and faster paced than the first book. So I think that might come in part, and I do broaden the number of POVs a bit as well. And some people see a bit of A Song of Ice and Fire, perhaps pull on in that regard. So that's definitely there. Other authors that I really adore, like Stephen Erickson, I hadn't read until I started the 3rd book. So if you see any Malazan influence, it's probably going to be in the 3rd book, but probably not very obvious and not a ton. Joe Abercrombie, I probably read a little earlier, so there might have been in the revision of the first couple of books.
Oh yeah, the first 3 chapters, it's a bloodbath. I'm like, Phillips and Joe. Geez, this is it. Yeah.
I think right from the prologue, right?
Yeah.
It was sort of,
I was like, oh, this is gonna be a real stabby book. Okay, all right. So I'm with you, Servant. I never was really like. I think back to. I mean, the only reason I read Pillars is because a friend of mine read it and just highly recommended it, and so that's the whole reason I did it. When I did it at so young of an age. But yeah, I'm really getting a little more interested in historical fiction. I think at this age, and Bernard Cornwell just kind of set the bar so high. I'm like, maybe I just want to read more Bernard Cornwell, but also obviously more Ken Follett, because Pillars of the Earth is one of my favorite books I've ever read. And I've never read anything else by him, so I didn't even know that was actually a series until like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, guilty here, because that's the only Ken Follett book I've read as well, as Pillars of the Earth. But yeah, I should do more.
This sounds like
also, yeah. I mean, what's that one?
Do you see a deeply philosophical take on fantasy like Erickson and Baker taking off, perhaps even a similar approach being applied to lighter than grimdark works? I mean, I think about, it seems like there's more people that have read Malazan now than there was, even 3 years ago. So I feel like BookTube has really, really helped with things like that, putting a lot of stuff on people's radar, getting them a chance, group reads, giving people a chance to read a difficult series together has really helped a lot.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I'd like to think we do that here, that we really encourage each other, that we help each other appreciate these series that we love even more. I know for me, every time I'm in a discussion with someone like you, Mike, even if we disagree, like we don't exactly see eye to eye on Song of Susanna, but but I got so much out of chatting with you about Dark Tower, and that's the beauty of this for me. It is all about that camaraderie and experiencing those stories, and it's totally fine that we don't always agree. So yeah.
I'm hoping, AP, one day that I can have read everything. I can just be like, I've read everything. I'm good. Now I can go reread First Law again, my wife's reading The Blade itself right now, and I'm just don't do it, Mike. I know, dude. I know. Since 2008, I've been asking her to read this series, and we were on the cruise, and she finished her book, and I just kept joking and taking her Kindle from her and putting it on page 1 of The Blade itself, and she was like, fine. And dude, I was laughing so hard because like literally the first hour, she's like, I hate this Giselle guy so much. Oh, just wait. I'm just like laughing out loud, all the stuff I heard complaining about Giselle, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be so fun. So yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That sounds like a major coup. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm hoping that it now it's that thing where you get worried, you bug someone forever to read something, then you get worried that, oh God, what if they don't like it? It's like I think back to that movie Fanboys, where they're trying to see Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, and at the end they're like, wait, what if the movie sucks? That's kind of how I feel like. What if she's all of a sudden going to be like, oh, this isn't that good? I'm like, oh no, I got to get a divorce. You know, I don't
Well,
want to get
hopefully,
divorced.
oh no, hopefully she loves it, and she goes on from the initial trilogy to read the standalone so that she's ready for the Best Served Cold film when it comes out, right?
No. Yeah. Well, you know, I just made a video about fantasy adaptations, and so you know, I'm not too excited. I
Wait,
mean, I
wait,
know
wait! You're
Joe's
not
involved.
excited,
I
even just a teeny
call,
bit.
do hope for the best, expect the worst. That's what I do with all these adaptations now. You know,
But
the only one
Joe
that I went into.
Abercrombie, he's in on it though, right? I mean,
Yeah, but
he's
he's also new to Hollywood. He can probably get pushed around a little easy.
huh, huh. Oh
Yeah,
man, I just hope it's good. I really
I do
do.
too. I do too. I think that Rebecca Ferguson can be a great Monza if it's done right. I'll be very anxious to see who they cast as Nakoma Casca, you know, because that's my guy. But
Oh my goodness, that has to
yeah,
be. Who would you put? Who would you put for
I have
Costa?
no idea. I said when I read it the first time, I was imagining Pedro Pascal, but literally all he'd really done at that point was like Narcos. You know, what like now raising everything. You know, and I'm like, you know, still, I think he could, but I wanted just to do a no name, an unknown. I don't know. I don't know.
Huh.
I just don't know if that's possible to find Casca. I mean, that's besides Glockta, that's probably my second favorite character in the series is Nakoma Casca. So I don't know if I can be pleased with this, you know? I don't know.
Who would you want to be Glockta?
His name is Bern Corman. He was in season 4 of The Expanse, and like seriously, every time I saw that guy, I was like, "Oh my god, I got such Glock!" Like he just kind of looks like malnourished. He looks kind of unhealthy. He's just lanky,
Huh.
like a beanpole, and he's got kind of almost like that skull kind of face. And I'm like, give this guy some broken teeth and a cane and roll with it, man. This guy would be great.
I
Yeah.
think it'd be cool to get somebody like these transformative actors like Christian Bale or something. These
Yeah,
guys
someone who actually let themselves be tortured for a year so they can play
yeah,
the character right.
who'll wrench out their own teeth,
Yeah.
to fit the part.
I think the only time in recent memory that I went into an adaptation super confident was gonna be good was Dune, just because I knew how much Jenny V that was like his dream project. He said he would because like Peter Jackson, where he wanted to make that movie for Frank Herbert like he was still alive, like he'd want to get his approval. So I was never worried about Dune, except you know they keep delaying the movie, the new one. But
Yeah, I saw you were a
that's
little
probably the
upset
only
about
one
that.
I wasn't worried about. Everything else, I'm like, if it's
Yeah.
great, great, but I'm not expecting it to be.
I loved part one. I
Yeah.
unambiguously loved part one. So I'm excited for part two.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, some people are saying Killian Murphy as I mean Killian Murphy. Yeah, that guy's a chameleon. He can do anything. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Yeah, yeah, that's
Cool.
great.
Cool.
That's great.
Huh.
You know what? So
Yeah.
hey, hopefully Best First Cole's good and it's so successful. They say, hey, we're going to make you know the First Law trilogy. That would be great. You know,
That would be
who knows?
awesome. Oh, then we'd have to figure out who's going to play Logan.
I mean, I have a fan cast. I could do a whole video. I had fan cast. I put out my cast, and like people were like, "Yeah, I'm actually on board for all these." So I don't know. I don't know. It's always evolving, but you know, it's also that thing where you're like, "Well, is that actor too old to play that part now? Am I remembering that actor from some movie in like 2004 or something like that?" Yeah, but you know, it's your head canon. He can be as old as you want him to be in your head, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
And Hollywood can do some magic too, So
yeah, we'll see. So, you still sticking by your wrong stance that the Age of Madness is the best First Law trilogy, or no?
oh, you mean the correct stance?
Apparently, I'm the only one who still thinks that the original trilogy is the best. Like I
You're
was
being
stunned on my
ornery about
Discord with
that.
everyone on my Discord was saying the Age of Madness is better. And I was like, no, no, man.
You're being ornery about that, aren't you?
No, you know me. I'm glad that you know other people have different opinions. It just surprises me sometimes. Some of my unpopular opinions surprise me. But I'm like, really? I mean, what's next? You're going to tell me that you think the Star Wars sequels or the prequels are better than
No,
the
no, no,
original?
no, no,
You
no,
know?
no. That's not a comparison. That is
Literally, no
not a
one thinks. Yeah.
comparison. No, I mean, okay. So, what does Abercrombie do better in Age of Madness than he does in First Law? And
Well,
I
I
will
mean,
say
obviously, I
that
think you know that many years later, he's probably a more polished writer, and I'll
yes,
give that. But to me, it's just like you'll never find characters better for me. Obviously, they had a 15-year head start, you know, on just being embedded into my brain about how great
okay.
these
So,
characters are. So it was hard to really pass those up.
yeah, I'm going to contradict myself a little bit here. I'm not changing my stance, but I'm going to give you a little bit of, I think, agreement in the sense that I think every writer has a story in them, their first story. which is closest to their heart. And probably that's what First Law was for Abercrombie, where these characters just emerged from the page, and they're beloved for good reason. What you just said, though, I think is very true. Abercrombie has improved as a writer. He's gotten better, in my opinion, as a writer. He much more, I think, control over the plot in Age of Madness than he had in First Law, where famously, the Blade itself, a lot of people, I don't have an issue with it myself because I enjoy the characters, but a lot of people feel like, where's the plot, in the Blade itself?
I do that anonymous question thing on Instagram, and like every day I get one about like, I'm reading Blade itself, does it get better? And I'm like, I think it does, but I will understand that it's not the traditional fantasy story that people are expecting. So
right. So I think that, it has its advantages over the later stuff, but I also love the fact that Abercrombie, I think, got way better at incorporating theme into his writing. I think he was a bit more of a character writer in the beginning, and that you gradually see him getting more thoughtful about some of the bigger themes. It doesn't ever hit you over the head with them, but they're there, I think, much more present in Age of Madness than in his earlier stuff. And then also, I think there's this really great thing about Age of Madness where you have these wonderful, strong, I don't mean strong as in warriors or anything, but vividly portrayed, fantastic female characters, which you don't have so much in the earlier stuff. So I think by far his best female characters are in Age of Madness.
Third Space, absolutely not. No, I will always default to like those characters are irreplaceable for me. But no, I love the story of the original First Law trilogy. Love it. So I just, it's always, what do you like so much about this? Well, I love these characters, but I love the story. I love the mystery. I love the misdirection. I love the character arcs, because none of those characters are likable. None of them when you start that series. None of them are anyone. Everyone's just a piece of trash, and someone like even like West that does something in the first book, you're like, well, that guy's irredeemable, and you are fully in that guy's corner by book 3, because he's just
true.
It's like Joe took a challenge from George R. R. Martin. Here, make a character that's totally unlikable and does unspeakable things, and have your readers rooting for them by 3 books. And he's like, I tell you what, I'll do that with my entire cast. And I feel like that's what he did. But I see a lot of you guys doing your fan casting for Logan. You guys are Henry Cavill, Carl. They're too handsome. Logan is supposed to be as ugly as shit, you guys. So I think the guy who played the guy that played the Hound on Game of Thrones, I think he'd be a great. Logan.
Oh yeah, he'd be good. Or
No, stop it, Scott. Go read Robin Hobb. God, get out of here.
Funny. Good night, AP. AP's taking a retiring for the evening.
I didn't ban anybody, John. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not banning people. As long as you're not being a D in the comments, I don't ever ban anybody from these discussions. Come on, Sam. Gosh. Yeah. All right. Have you read Brandon Sanderson like at all? I don't even know if you've read Brandon Sanderson.
So you and I have talked about Brandon Sanderson before, and I have read the original Mistborn trilogy, and I've read the first 3 of the Stormlight Archive books. I have not yet read Rhythm of War, and I just sort of at one point realized I'm going to have to just read it before the 5th book. So I'm just going to wait until shortly before book 5, read book 4, and be up to speed.
That's okay. I'll be flipping tables. I'll be flipping tables when you say Rhythm of War is the best Stormlight Archive book anyway. So because
I don't think I will, based on what I heard. I liked the first 2. The third one did drag for me somewhat. I thought it was a little bloated, honestly, and so it got a little bit tedious for me. And from what I've heard, I'm afraid Rhythm of War is going to be more of that, but I don't know. I haven't read it. So
all I say is you better be a reader who loves to be explained how the sausage is made, because that's what book 4 is. It's just explaining the science of how the magic works. And
it sounds to me like in this case, Sanderson was a victim of his own brilliance in a way, because he's so good with these intricate magic systems. And I think that's part of what fascinates him probably as a writer is coming up with these things. Maybe he got a little too into the detail there with
I
that.
think
For
so.
some readers, I don't know.
Do you know how disappointed I was when Oathbringer came out? Now, look, I think Oathbringer's a good book. Don't misunderstand me. I just think
Yeah.
it had the unfortunate position of coming after Words of Radiance, which is one of my favorite fantasy books ever. But Dalinar, that's my favorite character in the series. I'm like, that's my flashback character. And then it was like, it's fine, So it was like, I don't know, something about it. But when I kind of went through and reread it, I liked it a lot more than I did the first time. But Rhythm of War had like a flashback character I just could not give two shits about. And it just completely just dragged that book down for me. And then I felt like there were storylines that he recycled from when he finished Wheel of Time. So I was like, I don't know. It was just, I'm still super excited for book number 5. I really am. But 4 was just, man, it's one of that was a big crushing disappointment for me. And as well as I do, if you speak ill of the Lord Ruler on your BookTube channel, anything at all, people are gonna let you know about it. So I think I lost a lot of support when I didn't like Rhythm of War. I think. Yeah.
Did you really? Wow. Okay. Huh. I mean, I felt like there's always that initial kind of excitement, and this is the best book ever, and then things calm down a little bit, and then you start getting the more sober assessments, and I felt like there was enough voices out there who were saying, yeah, Rhythm of War was a little bit too technical or tedious at times, but I don't know. We'll see what I think. But based on my experience of Oathbringer, I'm afraid it's going to be somewhat similar to that for me, but we'll see. Maybe I'll be blown away. I don't know. The first 2 books I really got excited for and enjoyed.
Michael, I have my theory. Why does Brandon Sanderson have an HBO series? I'd love to see Mistborn. I have a theory that I don't know for sure. I just think he's very protective of his properties, and he's not going to let it be butchered like you see a lot of this stuff. So I feel like the way that he was treated by the showrunners of Wheel of Time, I think that left a bad taste in his mouth. And so he's just now just like, I'd rather just not see them made than see them, destroyed, not faithful to the product. So unless he's either going to have creative control or he's going to have ironclad in writing that he can make it exactly the way that he wants to. I think he'd rather just keep, the guy's not hurting for money, guys. So I think he's just happy to just, let it be on the page. I think Mistborn would be pretty good. I think that's easily adaptable. Stormlight, that has to be an anime. There's no way you can do live action. The Spren would have people laughing their balls off. You would never be able to take that seriously on screen. So
that would be tough to execute. But I feel like Sanderson's a big enough name to be able to say, yeah, you can adapt my show, but we're doing it in my book, but we're doing it this way.
So I feel like he's big enough. I think that's what he's doing. He's just being very protective, but like Pierce Brown is with Red Rising now, because like the first script of Red Rising, because he had first sold Red Rising, and like he told me about some of the stuff that they wanted to do like right away, and it was just like, so do you even want to adapt my story? And when the second that they didn't make it, he got his rights back, and he said, I'm not letting them go until I get to do this the way that I want. Yeah, so he's hanging on to it, but apparently he's got something in the works that he can't really talk about yet.
Yeah,
but I think about like when I talked to Blake Crouch, and he's showrunner for Dark Matter, his own book, and saying that he wants to make sure it's very, very, very faithful. So I think that's going to be the new way, because you see a lot of these people that, like I talked about recently, they don't want the authors like involved at all, and I just think that that's stupid. That's like the ultimate resource right there. Not saying you have to do everything they want, but you'd be foolish not to listen to them or think you're a better writer than that author, because you're not. I'll go ahead and tell you.
Well, you did make a little video on this topic recently.
I did.
Didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And I expected to get like reamed a lot more in the comments. And most people agree with me, because I was like, I'm looking at this from a business approach. And I know that some people just cannot take their heart out of it. And I wanted people to understand that, like, if you enjoy Rings of Power, if you enjoy Wheel of Time, man, that's great. I want people to enjoy stuff. It's just like, these should be IPs that are printing money. These things should be easy to see why they're so popular. And we can try to find a way to just transition that to the screen. Well, the first, make it be like the book, would be a good start. And like I said, I was expecting to get reamed a lot more in the comments, but I haven't. It's been pretty positive.
Yeah. Yeah, I would expect this particular community, there would be large agreement with you on that topic. I will say that I would not ever want to be a screenwriter involved in adapting a beloved series. I would just be too scared. It would be so much pressure. So
Well,
from
no doubt.
that
I mean, like,
perspective,
look how good Lord of the Rings turns out. Like, people don't remember that the fans were pissed at a lot of the stuff
oh
in
yeah,
these movies. They
oh yeah,
were, and I was like, we've talked about Tom Bombadil a billion times. I mean, there's certain
oh
things
yeah,
where I'm like, I get why they made those changes. And that's different. You're making the changes for. Sure, I didn't like really what he did with Faramir, but again, you're adapting maybe the greatest story ever told, and you did that damn good. That's impressive. I can take
yeah.
those little bit of changes. When you're
Agreed.
watching Wheel of Time, you're like, wow, this isn't what I read at all. That's when it's like, what's your goal here? So mm,
Yeah, I think it helped that you had a lot of huge fans working on Lord of the Rings. You had a very strong vision from the beginning. Um, it did make major changes. I think that's something that's not always acknowledged enough. It's not just about taking out Tom Bombadil or the scouring of the Shire and all that. It's there are some changes I think in terms of the films are much more action oriented, much
yeah,
faster paced than the
yeah,
books. Of course, that's modernizing the story to a great degree. Also, it's the medium, it's film. But I think you do give up a little bit of that reverence we were talking about earlier. When you read Tolkien, it's a spiritual experience. There's so much beauty in Middle Earth. I think that Jackson did his best to convey that in moments, but some of that gets lost, honestly. I think. And I'm a fan of the films. I'm not trying to be critical here. It's just that it's inevitable that you're going to lose some things and gain some things in any adaptation. So
you think
more
that,
songs.
Luke, but they put the songs in the Hobbit trilogy, and everybody hated it. So no, maybe
I
not.
love those songs. I love
Yeah.
them.
That was one of my more favorite parts of the Hobbit trilogy, honestly. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's wild.
yeah,
So what are you reading right now? You're just reading the Book of the New Sun?
yeah. I'm finishing up Book of the New Sun. I started today. I before that, well, I'm always reading a little bit of SPFBO as well. So because I've got all those books to get through, but I just finished as we started with
City
the
of Dragons.
latest in the Rain Wilds. Yep. So City of Dragons. And I'm going to finish Blood of Dragons in September. So we are on schedule.
We
We're
are.
going to
We are.
finish out the year
I had
with,
this month.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
with
mean, I
Fits in the
have big
Full. A lot of people.
expectations.
Yeah, I mean, because Fits in the Full or Tiny Man is usually ranked at the top of everybody's rankings. But
Yeah. Yeah.
for me, it's gonna be hard to top Live Ship. But I'm excited. I'm excited to get back to six. To actually feel
Yeah.
like I'm gonna finally get some answers for some things. Hopefully, since we're
Yeah.
coming to end, and it's just seeing people whose opinion I respect just being like completely like just devastated reading the last book and just like
Yeah.
just that feeling of kind of like I said, like I don't feel like Return of the King is a sad book, but you're crying because it's like the end of a journey. You've went to hell and back with these characters, so I'm hoping to get that kind of that same feeling, with Assassin's Fate when I finish it.
Yeah. Yeah. It is sad, but it's also happy at the same
Yeah,
time. It's
yeah,
really
journey's
tough
end.
it's melancholy. There's loss, but there's also victory at the same time. So it's just, there's so much going on
Yawning
there.
man, I can't believe I missed that, Brian. I should have used that when I was talking about the Tawny Man. Yawning man.
Oh, Yanni Man. Oh, I love Tawny Man, but I have to say that's a brilliant pun.
That is pretty good.
Yeah.
So, how would you say content wise? You got anything special? Any videos you got cooking up, or are you not really back on that schedule yet?
I mean, I'm trying to get back into. I mean, I was gone for a month, and so I did have some recorded conversations. I did a couple while I was in Nepal. I did some SPFBO reviews, and I reviewed P.L. Stewart's book while I was there. I had a bunch of birds flying all over the place, but there was nowhere else I could go that was quiet. So that review has a lot of birds in it. But yeah, no, I'm just trying to enjoy myself on booktube right now, and that means mostly discussions. That's what I
Yeah,
love.
me
That's what I
too.
get the most out of. I'm not at a point where I feel any need whatsoever to grow the channel or anything like that. I'm comfortable and I'm enjoying myself. I'm loving the fact that I'm part of this community and I'm getting to talk to so many wonderful people about books that I love. And that's the
Yeah,
experience
same.
I wanted from the beginning. So that's what I'm continuing to do. And I know that's not the sexiest thing on BookTube or YouTube right now, is to have long form, in-depth discussions on stuff. But that's really why I'm here. And, that's who I am. So I'm just going to keep doing that. And whoever likes that sort of thing, hopefully will want to hang out, So that's what I'm going to do.
I haven't actually heard anything about if John's writing again yet or not. I'm not really sure. I understand it, but he's took a hiatus, death in the family.
They had that tragedy in the
It was
family.
like, yeah, take as long as you need. But, he's not really
Absolutely.
active on social media anymore since that happened. So, and, I haven't even talked to Ed and Will, because that's not exactly a conversation I would like to start with someone. So it's like when it's coming, of course, I'm going to read it. John Gwynn hasn't missed a single book yet. So, yeah, I'll be very excited. But
that's a release.
I hope he does have a recap in book 3 of what happened in the first 2 books, because I might have forgotten a little by now.
Yeah. But that'll be a release day read for me, unless I'm lucky enough to get an arc. And of course, I would love to read an arc. I think for me, Bloodsworn is my favorite John Gwynn so far. I don't have any definite news on that either. I think there might be a chance next year, but yeah, I don't think there's any definite word anywhere. Yeah, we all wish the Gwynn family the best, absolutely, because what a beautiful family.
Yeah,
wonderful people. But yeah, whenever it comes out, I'm definitely going to be dropping everything and reading it. So yeah.
Likewise, just like you guys should drop everything and read The Way of Edan and The Prophet of Edan and what's the third one?
Return to Edan.
Return to Edan. See, Return of the King. You ripping off Tolkien all the time. God, how dare you? For real, guys.
No, I never thought of that. Somebody pointed that out to me, and I thought, oh, maybe that was unconscious. But yeah.
Tell him, no, it's Return of the Jedi, bro. I mean, come on, just like about
that's
that.
Right. There's another third story that's a return there.
There we go.
But from the beginning, the trilogy was always for me 3 parts in a way. So you do have the departure, and then you have the transcendence, and then you have the return. So that's kind of was a natural title for me. Yeah.
Fellowship of the That's pretty good. All right. Well, thank you always for joining me. I don't think we could ever probably run out of things to talk about. I'm glad that you were willing to jump on here so soon after your return trip. And it was just kind of like, hey, what are you doing? Well, let's just do it. So that's really cool. I would love to be a return guest on Dear Dr. Fantasy someday. I'm sure we'll make that happen eventually.
You got it. Absolutely.
Because you have a new episode of that like every week. I only do this once a month, so might be able to fit things in. But again, I'm glad you're back, and I wish you nothing but luck, obviously, with the ending of your trilogy here, and with the return to school. That's going to be a lot of fun for you guys.
Oh yeah,
I'm very excited. So I am married to an educator, so I know that pain right now from my end as being married to a spouse. So hopefully, you're easier on your spouse, with these things than mine is when it's time to go back to school.
Yeah. Well, my spouse is also a professor. So
no kidding. That's right. Okay. All right. Yeah. So you guys feel each
other. So we're in
the
same boat. Yeah. But I do wish your wife the absolute best with the return to school. And of course you, Mike, and 99,000 subscribers.
Today. Yeah. Wow.
Whoa.
Right? Wow. So, I know. Final countdown. I can retire. Like in middle of September, I can retire officially. So I don't even have to plan my videos out for October or nothing. It's great.
Don't say that. We need you around here for a while now.
No, I'll, like I said, I'll keep doing this until people tell me just stop. Or this whole YouTube bubble bursts or something like that. But I don't imagine I'm going anywhere. But I'll be honest. It'll be kind of neat to just not even worry about that anymore. To even looking at the subscriber count, because seriously, 100 is a nice goal, I think, for creators. But after that, it's just whatever. As long as people are having a good time watching my stuff and they're reading new things, that's obviously my goal. And I get to talk to wonderful creators and authors like Philip, who is a jack of all trades. He can do all these things. And I don't know. I can't wait for his next book that's probably written in another language. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great, guys. So
yeah.
Thanks for watching, guys. And everybody, where to find Philip, right? You want to tell them where they can find you?
Oh yeah, Philip Chase, Best of Fantasy. But yeah, I'm here on YouTube. I do fiddle around a little bit on Twitter, or no, what is it called now?
X. It's
Whatever.
called
Yeah,
X now. Yeah, X, like
X.
SpaceX.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First, I was like, X, really? Oh, yeah, SpaceX. Duh. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But
And
I'm
that's
there,
it. That's
Philip
all your
Chase.
socials.
That's it. I'm kind of pathetic that way. But I mean, I have a Facebook that I don't really use at all. So don't even try me there. Yeah, I don't do Instagram, is the other one, right?
Yeah.
Or TikTok yet.
That one's
So,
very rare for me, but I do have it. But
yeah.
it's not really. It's not really a place for the elder statesman of BookTube. We had a podcast that would be called The Elder Statesman of BookTube. I think that would be pretty cool. All right. Well, I don't know how to end these things, so I'm just going to go ahead and say good night, everybody. And Philip, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, my friend.